boast. I could talk about it. Nobody's coming at me. I've already said numerous times. I was in a vehicle. There was discussion that I passed the gun off to Orlando. That right there, him incriminating himself passing a gun, I don't know why he wasn't locked up at that point.
Well, can you describe a little bit about that relationship? Orlando Anderson, who was his nephew, he was murdered 2 years later after Tupac Shakur was murdered. Obviously, once again, if you guys are just joining us, Keefe D is the only living suspect. Oh, before I finish that thought, there is a presser now going on right now, so I want to take us to that.
Get hired to review the grand jury transcripts or to prepare a motion if one is needed, but obviously the things that jump out is that there's no gun, there's no car, and there's no witnesses from 27 years ago.
Mr. Goodman, when things get finalized, do you plan to ask the court for bail?
Of course, I think Mr. Davis should be released on OR. He's not a flight risk. He's not a danger to the community. He's lived in Henderson for 11 years. And he's not going anywhere.
Ross, how do you defend someone who, time after time, publicly has said that they were there, they know what happened, and that they were handing this murder weapon to the president? How do you defend that?
Well, you have to look at the facts and circumstances surrounding why he gave those statements at the time that he gave those statements. But again, I haven't reviewed those statements in detail. I haven't reviewed the other evidence, but I believe there's a motive and incentive on why somebody would make a statement like that, even though it may not be true.
Is G.G. Fall still representing him? Is E.D. Fall still representing Mr. Davis?
I'm not sure what his relationship is right now, or whether or not he's going to associate into the case.
Could you speak at all about the topper agreement that he made with LAPD detectives 15 years ago?
That's one thing I haven't reviewed in detail, so I can't make a comment regarding that.
When you talk about how large this case is, I mean, how much work is this doing for you going forward?
It's a big case. I mean, it's 27 years in the making, so I understand there's about 600 pages of grand jury transcripts, and you can imagine the amount of evidence and potentially impeachment evidence that comes along with all these witnesses that are going to come out of the woodworks.
There have been suggestions from Keefe himself that he has cancer, he has potentially terminal cancer, that his health is in very bad shape. Can I ask you, what do you know of that? How is he doing? You spoke of him today. What's his mood like?
Well, he's happy I was there today, and he's happy that shortly I can confirm his counsel if it gets finalized, and that we can bring a motion for bail so he can be released. And with respect to his medical condition, I've heard the same things. I haven't reviewed any medical records yet, so I can't comment on that, but apparently he did have colon cancer shortly before he gave those statements.
How's his well-being that you spoke to? How's his spirits?
The spirits are fine right now. He thinks that there are defenses, and he wants to fight the case.
Why did you say he confessed?
Well, I don't know if that is a confession. That's a legal conclusion. And like I said before, I'm not even in on the case yet. I haven't reviewed anything, but just based on the reports, I believe when I see these statements, which are extrajudicial statements, that there are reasons on why people say things. But as everybody here knows, that you have to corroborate those statements. And if you don't have a car, if you don't have a gun, you don't have witnesses to corroborate what Mr. Davis said under those circumstances, I believe there's an obvious defense to that on why he made those statements and a motive to making those statements. That's all I can answer at this point.
Thank you.
That's all I can hold, too.
You guys got me to say too much.
Thank you.
It's heavy after a while.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
What up, Shad?
Y'all bring a stand next time. Yeah.
I think they're gonna film it.
Oh, yeah. Man.
All right, as you just heard, that was Keefe D's lawyer, Ross Goodman, answering some questions to the media. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to head back to Las Vegas to see the latest. Anjanette Levy is also on standby to talk to us. We'll be right back.
Keefe D is going down. unless he tells, which he probably is. But then again, I don't know how they would prove it. If he tells on Diddy or something, I don't know how they're gonna prove. That seems like a reach. Seems a little far-fetched. But they said he's relaxed. They said he's all right. So he's seeming like he knows what he's gonna do to wiggle his way through this. I don't know though. I feel like somebody got to go down for this at some point, and that's just what it looks like he's gonna do. He's gonna end up taking the fall. I don't know. It can be. You know how that goes. That can be for forever. But they were saying, I don't know how early you jumped in, but a little bit earlier they were saying that the judge was saying the trial is going to have to start within the next couple weeks. Whether somebody has to be assigned to it or something, but they're trying to get it underway within the next 2 weeks. So I don't know, man. Keefe D, man, you in trouble. While we're waiting on that, let's look at some clips of Keefe D telling on himself while we're here. If I just type Keefe D telling on himself, I'm pretty sure it'll pop up. Let's see.
Go. Yeah, I think that's Flamingo. He's coming up Flamingo and got to the light. He was going to go drink, smoke some weed, and he happened to be hanging out the window. He's hanging out the window like he was in a parade.
Tupac.
Yeah, he was.
So what happens next?
And we just came and shit. I ain't gonna go into the details like that. You know what I'm saying?
Cause you can't.
But you know.
Probably because you
got it
can't,
in the book.
Keefe D.
You done played it, everything else, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, in the book, you said that as you're driving up towards the BMW with Suge driving and Tupac in the passenger seat, and you said that Tupac pulled out a gun.
It looked like he was reaching, yeah. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you actually see
I never really paid attention to the fact that he doesn't even.
Once he got the region, I got the duck.
He doesn't even sound confident in what he's saying. Like, you can tell he's kind of like piecing the story together. So maybe it is true that somebody paid him to either take the fall or to actually be the killer or be involved in the killing. Because the way he's telling the story, it's like almost like he's getting the information secondhand from somebody else.
So someone from your car
That's what
started shooting at Tupac and Suge.
Lane starts blasting. You say Suge looks over, he sees you.
You guys are just tapping in. I'm just going through
He
a
looks right at
plethora
you.
of videos of Keefe D telling on himself
looks over at you,
while we're waiting on
And
the
then, Tupac
Thanks for coming back to Law and Crime. I'm Michelle Yu. The arraignment for Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was just delayed again for the 1996 death of rapper Tupac Shakur. Now, Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy was inside that courthouse for the arraignment. We will get her on very soon. But for now, I want to welcome another legal guest for today, Matthew Mangino. Matthew, welcome. What is your take on this whole case with Keefe D?
Well, it's interesting, and when you contrast it with what we just saw yesterday with Joran Vandersloot, here's a guy who admitted to a murder and can't be charged with homicide because of the statute of limitations in Aruba. And here we have, a 27-year-old homicide that's now being prosecuted because new evidence has been obtained. So it's interesting to contrast these two cases and how they're so very different.
Matt, what did you take away from Keefe D's lawyer there, Ross Goodman, on what he had to say?
Well, it's interesting to see, again, that this arraignment has been delayed, and I think it's in part because of what we've heard from his attorney. And I think that, certainly this isn't the place where you're going to enter a guilty plea, or you're going to do anything other than plead not guilty, find out what the charges are against you, and then, the case moves forward. It's docketed, it's scheduled. So, it's not surprising that counsel, jockeys sort of for position and for the public at this stage of a proceeding.
Now, the other guest for this hour is former NYPD Commander Corey Pegues, who's in studio with me. Corey, what did you make of the lawyer there and what he had to say?
Well, just like Matt said, and I defer to Matt as a attorney, it really wasn't much he was saying. It was all the same stuff. He was deferring, and hoping. What I got out of it was they haven't signed a retainer at this point, so there's not much he can say. And he did say, like, once that paperwork is done, then I can put in release on bail. So he can't really do much at this point because he's not officially his attorney.
Well, what I also got away from that, Matt, and as we were watching that, he said he hasn't reviewed all the materials about this case yet, but he does believe there's, a whole defense here, and that's that they don't have a weapon, they don't have any of that, and also he's the only living suspect. How big of that is it in play here?
Well, Michelle, anytime you're dealing with a homicide that occurred 27 years ago, and now you're trying to prosecute that case, it's always going to be difficult. And there's always going to be opportunity for the defense to make something out of, missing witnesses, unavailable witnesses, witnesses who are now deceased or potential witnesses, the murder weapon, all those things, play a role in a case like this. And the fact that it's taken 27 years to make an arrest and to proceed with the prosecution all works in favor of the defense.
All right. And of course, our Anjanette Levy is in Las Vegas. She is covering this for us on Law and Crime. We hope to hear from her very soon. We do need to take another quick break here. Much more to do here on a very busy day of trial coverage. We'll be right back.
Is Tupac's trying to either get out
in the back seat or something.
What if I told you for just $1 down, you could get a brand new computer?
I seen a bullet going through his head. I thought he was dead.
So Orlando shot across Dre?
He leaned over on the window. We rolled down the window, popped.
Who was it?
They would drove on my side. I would have popped them. You know what I'm saying? But they was on the other side.
Right.
I'm not gonna go into details on that one. Keep the streets on me.
I'm gonna go ahead and read from the book.
This nigga said I'm not gonna go into detail on that. He's an idiot. This nigga's an idiot. I'm telling you. I don't understand what they're gonna use all this in court, and Vlad immediately goes to reading the book. Like, he immediately goes towards, every time he tries to deflect, he goes, and they were just talking about that on Law and Crimes Network. They were just saying that usually everything that you ask him about, he'll try to deflect and, stumble around whatever the story is, and then whoever it is that's interviewing him will just bring up what he wrote in the book and the proffer or agreement or interview that he had, the audio that's out.
Well,
so
let them buy the book then.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to read this passage. The shit was on. Tupac made an erratic move and began to reach down beneath his seat. It was the first and only time in my life that I could relate to the police command. Keep your hands where I could see them. Instead, Pac pulled out a strap, and that's when the fireworks started. One of my guys from the backseat grabbed the Glock and started busting back. The first shot skinned Suge in the head, and I thought that motherfucker was dead. I had heard some stories, supposedly that Suge used Tupac as a shield when the bullets started flying, but that's some bullshit. Suge was already wounded, and he was the one that got touched. As the rounds continued flying, I ducked down so I wouldn't get hit.
Basically, yeah.
The white Cadillac, arm came out the back seat, started letting off.
He was just going on and on, just telling on himself.
You might be getting arrested for the murder of Tupac. Any last words?
If they do come arrest me, all I want to do is just hire me some good attorneys and try to get up out the shit. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Like you said, his dude acting like he wasn't going to give no detail. He went around on a tour of interviews basically talking about the situation or trying to utilize the fact that he is the only living person or witness from that situation. He went on a whole tour around the world doing all kinds of interviews with people just to basically get on there and say, I'm not going to talk about it. Y'all can go get the book. And the book is what is probably, because I'm pretty sure they can probably use some of the interviews to convict him. But I know people like Vlad, he was saying that he was on the news and he was saying that he wasn't going to cooperate or help the police with his, with that information. So, or I guess there was an interview that he had, or parts of the interview that he had that they were trying to get him to release to them that he said that he wouldn't release. So, I don't know. I think that the only thing they can really use is the book and the proffer agreement. But you may have some bloggers or whoever interviewed him aside from Vlad who might be willing to put the information out or whatever extra information that they have just to, for clout or for money, whatever the case may be. So I don't know, but I'm pretty sure the book is what he really needs to worry about because like you said, he went into detail about all this already in grave detail and they have audio. So I don't know.
Here with us now to bring us the latest. Thank you so much, Anjanette. What were the vibes inside that courtroom?
Well, Michelle, it was kind of like Groundhog Day. We were all here 2 weeks ago for this same procedure, the same arraignment hearing. It was continued yet again. This time, though, Keefe D had a lawyer present. That's Dwayne Davis. His street name is Keefe D, of course. And his name is Ross Goodman. He does high-profile cases here in Las Vegas. His mother is the mayor of Las Vegas. And he asked for a 2-week delay because he said he's still finalizing the representation agreement with Dwayne Davis. And so there are some things that are still going to need to be worked out. So this arraignment will be continued until November 2nd. Same vibe as last time, really. A little less media there. I did not see Keefe D's family here this time, but I did meet up with a friend of his who came to support him. He wasn't in the courtroom, but he was outside the courtroom. So you could see Keefe D. I mean, he's very serious. He knows this is serious. It doesn't get any more serious than this in the legal system. He is facing a murder charge with a gang enhancement. So it's a case that is a very high-profile case here in Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas Police Department and the DA have said that this is an important case. And joining me to discuss it is somebody who has handled his fair share of high-profile cases. He is Gabe Grasso. He represented O.J. Simpson, you may recall, back in 2007, 2008, in that robbery case where O.J. Simpson went into a hotel and robbed some people with the assistance of others of some memorabilia. So, Gabe, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Your thoughts on what happened today?
Well, this is just sort of the, I guess, ugly underbelly of how these cases get started with not much going on. Apparently, Mr. Keefe D, That's what he goes.
Keefe D. Yes.
Keefe D.
Dwayne Davis.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dwayne Davis. I'd call him Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Davis is attempting to hire Ross Goodman. He's apparently made an agreement with him to a retainer agreement, but there's still some things to work out, and that's where we're at with this. You know, it's an interesting case, and I spoke with Ross. I've known Ross for 15, 20 years, and he's a capable attorney. I've actually tried cases as co-counsel with him, and he can handle this. You know, he'll be able to handle this case. It's just a question of the client getting the lawyer on board and seeing where we're at when the dust settles and we get here in 2 weeks, and hopefully Ross can say, you know, I'm going to confirm as counsel, because that's what he's got to do. He's got to confirm as counsel. And then they're going to set they might set a trial date, they might set a status date, but normally they would set a far out trial date with some dates in between.
You said you spoke with Ross. We just saw you over there speaking with him. You've tried cases with him. Tell us a little bit about his style. He seems very sure of himself. He came down here and talked with us. He says 600 pages of grand jury transcripts. He hasn't read them, but he already sees defenses to this case.
One of the most difficult things for somebody to do in a case like this is hire the right lawyer, because I've been trying cases now for going on 35 years all over the country. Most of my practice now is federal, but I tell people that, you know, it's very difficult to really know who to hire. You can't go by the billboards. You can't go by, not that criminal defense lawyers use billboards, but you can't really go by that. And so at least I can tell you that, you know, there are a handful of lawyers in any jurisdiction that are the top criminal defense lawyers. And Ross Goodman is a lawyer who regularly practices criminal defense. You want at least that. Hopefully he'll be able to, and he's got a team around him. He's got a going office. He's here every day. So that's what you need. So I think, you know, like I said, I don't have any doubts that Ross can handle this case. This is a case that it's going to take some nuance, that's for sure.
Let's talk about that. I mean, nuance for sure, because we have somebody who engaged in a proffer agreement back in 2008, 2009. He tells this story about what happened that night. He basically, that statement can't be used against him, but then he goes out starting in 2018 and he starts giving interviews to YouTube channels, to BET, the Death Row Chronicles. He writes a book, Compton Street Legend. He talks about throwing a Glock. I mean, I read the book. He throws a Glock into the back seat. It doesn't appear that this is a work of fiction, or that he was telling it as a work of fiction. This was supposed to be a non-fiction account of what happened. So what are the nuances here? I mean, how do you kind of work around this?
Well, obviously, I'm just here commenting.
Sure.
I don't even think, no one on the defense side, I think at this point, I think probably Ross is the most informed defense attorney in town on it, because he's probably had some bits and pieces of information that other people don't know. But from what I know about the case, for example, there have been some articles about this proffer agreement with the feds in California back in the day where he made statements. Well, I think, for example, they made a big deal about that. I think that the state can move forward. The state in Nevada can move forward with this case without using any of the statements he made in the proffer agreement. I mean, that's how I'd approach it if I were the prosecutor. I wouldn't want that issue coming up. But remember, proffer agreements have a lot of, I do that on a regular basis. That's one of the things I do most in my practice is proffer agreements with the feds. And proffer agreements have other parts of them that people don't remember. They just think that whatever you say in the proffer agreement can't be used against you. In reality, if you then in a trial down the road take the stand and say something different than you said in the proffer agreement, they can use the proffer agreement against you. There's sort of contingencies about that, as well as they can use what you say. They can make what's called derivative use, which means the feds can take what you said, or any investigative body, and they can investigate further based on what you say and come up with more evidence. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue in this case, the proffer agreement. I think they have enough to move forward. I mean, the grand jury found probable cause to move forward on this charge. The issue I see is all this stuff has been out there for a long time. Okay, all this information. He wasn't charged in 2018. He wasn't charged in 2019. He was charged in 2023.
Right.
So what's up with that? See, that would be a question I would have as a defense counsel, and I would say, okay, what caused this? What was the trigger? That's what I would have my investigators and trying to figure out what was the reason for this. Maybe there's something that I can use as a defense in how this case got where it is right now. That's one of the issues. And the other thing that it's funny. There's a quote from Albert Einstein that sort of reminds me of what's going on in this case, because they say, well, we have hundreds and hundreds of pages of grand jury testimony. We have many witnesses in the grand jury, and these are all like former detectives in California who investigated, and former Nevada detectives, and all these people who are talking. But there's no gun, there's no car, there's no DNA, there's no real evidence other than testimonial evidence, not only from Mr. Davis, but from other people. And so when you have people talking, that's where defense attorneys can make most of their progress. When you have just testimonial evidence, right? That's where you can challenge things. So I just remember this quote from, when they say, well, look at all the evidence we have now. Back when Albert Einstein came out with the theory of relativity, the general relativity theory, there was a magazine article which was entitled 100 Physicists Against the Theory of Relativity, basically challenging Einstein's, because it was a new theory and people were saying, no, there's no way this is for real. And Einstein was asked about it, and he said, why 100? If I am wrong, you only need one. And so that's sort of the attitude I would take. Why do you need all this? If this guy really is what you say he is, if he is the guy, why do you need, why is all these little grains of sand building up to finally getting right past the probable cause determination? That would be sort of part of my theme in the case. Because, for example, when you're a person in his world, in Mr. Davis's world, one of the things I know from I've represented in federal court the Rolling 60s Crips. Okay, I represented that group. And one thing I learned about representing the Rolling 60s Crips and representing the Hells Angels and the Laughlin Shootout, and I've been involved in those cases and representing individuals who were charged in those conspiracies, is that one of the lifeblood of some of those organizations really is bragging, pontificating, making things up about yourself, getting street cred out of basically what might be BS.
Yeah.
And so those are all things that can be argued, like you can actually investigate that and formulate a defense as to how possibly this could just be all BS.
Now, Judge Jones obviously seems a little irritated. She wants to get the ball rolling on this case. Do you see her, because Ross Goodman said, I think he should be released on an OR bond. He's lived here for years. He's not done anything, bad. Do you see the judge releasing him on bail, maybe with a GPS monitor or something like that?
That's if I were defense counsel, I wouldn't even be worried about the case yet. I would be right now concentrating, if I were, any defense counsel worth his salt, and I'm pretty sure Ross is thinking the same way. The main issue here is getting him out, because he was walking around for 27 years, if this is true, and it's not as if he's been arrested 15 times since then. He's been a relatively law-abiding citizen. I'm not sure if he has any.
He did years for drug dealing, but yeah.
I'm just saying, like in the last few years, he's 60 years old. He's been, he was taking a walk with his wife when he got arrested. So that would be my main concern, is trying to get him out on bail, because this is a weird case. This isn't one of these cases where the alleged murder just happened and the guy's on the run and they finally caught him and now he's not getting out. Because the standard in not only Las Vegas, in Clark County, but in other jurisdictions is, if it's a first-degree murder accusation, people usually aren't getting out on bail.
Right.
But this is a different kind of case.
Well, Gabe Grasso, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and your insight. We appreciate you coming down and talking with us today, and we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks so much. All right, Michelle, so there you have it. The arraignment will be continued again until November 2nd. You heard Gabe Grasso saying he thinks there are ways to defend this case, and really right now the top priority should be getting a bond for Dwayne Davis if the judge is so inclined to do that. So we'll have to wait and see. He does have a prior criminal record. He did about 15 years for some drug dealing. He was a very serious drug dealer in the Compton area of California, had a lot of money from what we understand from dealing drugs and made a lot of money. Whether or not he still has that money, who knows? But we do know that he has a past criminal record. He's somebody who's been through this before. He knows the score. He knows how this goes. So we will wait and see what happens, and we'll have it covered for you.
All right, Anjanette Levy, thank you so much. Great work as always. We're going to check in with you later on in the broadcast. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. Much more trial coverage to do here on Law and Crime.
Yeah, man. So got pretty crazy. I'm gonna keep, like I said, I'm gonna try to cover as much of that trial as possible. It hasn't started yet. They're talking about waiting at least another 2 weeks to get it going. Right now, they're just going over the basics. He appeared in court to see if they would have a date to set the trial, but there was of course another delay, as it usually happens. So we'll see what's going on with Keefe D and whether or not he's going to be tried for the murder of Tupac 30 years later. So as you guys can see, I'm a Tupac fan, so I'm going to try to keep as much of this content going for you guys as it comes out. So appreciate you guys tapping in, man. Like, share, comment, subscribe. It's BredWinr TV.